Welcome to Android Authority on Air, the original Android Hangout show on Google+. I'm Derek Ross.
And I'm Scott Anderson.
We are joined with fellow Android Authority blogger Nate Swanner this week. He's a first-time guest on the show. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you.
As well as Jonathan Franklin and Dan Charlton, our hardware guru / Apple hater / you name it, whatever he wants to yell about. He has some stuff to yell about tonight, too. And we're joined with Aaron Gasconi from Paranoid Android. Welcome, Aaron. Who just dropped out. That's why live shows are fun, because you never know what's going to happen. All right. So, those of you watching live, Aaron just left, obviously. He will be back in a minute, fingers crossed, confidence high. He was having a little bit of internet connectivity issues, so he's actually joining from his tablet because his laptop, we're having some sound issues. So hopefully he'll be back in a few seconds, but we're going to get to the PA stuff a little bit later on in the show. We have a bunch of questions lined up for him from our audience. If you are just tuning in now and you have some Paranoid Android questions for Aaron, go ahead and add those to our comments either on YouTube or on Google+, and we'll check those out and add those to the queue of our questions here in a little bit once Aaron obviously comes back, since he just disconnected. But hey, that's what makes live shows fun. Okay, so this week on the show, well, we're going to talk about some app updates. You know, they may be boring, but hey, there's some cool new apps that got updated in betas that came out this week. We're going to talk about some nice rumors with devices, as always. Maybe a big note. We're going to talk about some root and ramen stuff, such as HTC hating on the dev scene. We're going to do some Ingress giveaways and some LG, some HTC M7s, all sorts of fun stuff this week. So stay tuned for a good show. So Dan, I hear we don't have a whole lot of Google ecosystem news this week. But we do have some mobile industry news to talk about.
Yeah, so Google and Apple and really everybody else in the world has been posting their fourth quarter earnings, except for Apple, who keeps a very strange calendar, which makes this their first quarter. Google posted theirs a few days ago, and their stock was up like $40 or $50 over the last 2 days afterwards. In comparison, Apple posted their earnings last night just after the closing bell, and overnight, over the last 24 hours, they've lost $65 per share in value, which translates to roughly 12.5–13%, or $60+ billion in 24 hours. Now, putting that in a little bit bigger perspective, back when they launched the iPhone 5, they were at $700 a share. So in the time since they launched the iPhone 5, they have lost $235 billion. That phone cost them $235 billion, or roughly the entire value of Microsoft. The iPhone 5 cost Apple Microsoft.
You know what was really interesting watching it was
good.
Apple's tanking and Google's stock going up. Almost all of it happened after hours. They were pretty stagnant during the day, and then after hours was when.
Well, Google stock dropped $50 after hours.
Last quarter, when Google posted their earnings in the middle of the day, their stock plummeted right afterwards. The earnings reports weren't bad or anything. It was just weird to get the reports then, and so people freaked out. Typically, companies post their earnings reports shortly after the closing bell, specifically so that way everything does happen in after-hours trading.
Yeah.
And in Google, when they posted their earnings call, or after their earnings call, and they talked about their financials and everything, the next day in after-hours trading, their stock went up, was like $50, like $48 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like $40 and then another $10 during trading the next day.
Yeah. So if you own Google stock, you're loving it right now. And if you own Apple stock, you're pretty much not loving it right now.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens over the next few months, when rumored new devices are supposed to come out from each company. I mean, obviously, anything can happen. Next week, we could be on the show crying tears that Apple's stock is up $50 a share and Google's is down. And who knows?
Sure.
The market's a guess and a gamble, but it's interesting to see after the earnings call come out what each company's results were, and to see how the market was affected by it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't mean to suggest that Apple is, not doing well. They posted massive profit. They're a hugely profitable company. They're sitting on $137 billion in cash. Like, they've got tons of money. They certainly aren't hurting. It's just, schadenfreude to watch their stock fall apart.
Now, other industry news. So we heard this week as well, there's a whole lot of Android malware out there. Now, Dan, how much malware is that, actually?
Well, there are analysts suggesting that there's going to be over 1 million Android malware applications. And before people start freaking out, let's remember that in North America, roughly 0.3% of people have ever been affected by Android malware. Ever. So if you're not getting your applications from shady back alley, Russian or Chinese internet
dark
sites,
corners of the internet,
yeah, then you don't have problems with Android malware. But with 1 million Android malware applications, that means there are more Android malware applications than there are applications for Windows 8.
Yeah, so there's more malware for Android than there is total apps that exist for the Windows Phone. So
yes,
I mean, there's also over 500 million devices running Android right now. So there's only a million apps that are malware, but there's 500 million devices. That number is actually really, really small when you look at the total amount of apps that people have installed. I mean, there's billions and billions of apps installed. Yes. So it's very, very small. It sounds like a lot.
And yes, there absolutely are more than 1 million different malware applications for Windows out there floating around the internet. And
everybody remembers Droid Rage on Twitter.
More likely that you'll get one of those than you'll get an Android malware.
All right, so on to some Android news here. Aaron is coming back. He had some internet connectivity issues. He sent me a private message. He's going to where the internet is plentiful and fast.
I wonder where that is.
So he will be back. He will be back shortly once he reaches the promised land.
Does
In
that
the
mean
meantime,
Kansas?
He's probably going to Kansas City.
Yeah, he's going to Kansas City.
Yeah, he's going to get some Google Fiber, or Dan, or is he going to get some Google Wireless?
He might be getting some Google Wireless.
So let's talk about that. So Google for a while has been rumored to be launching in conjunction with Dish Network their own wireless service. We've heard people talk about it in the industry over the past few months. A lot of speculation, a lot of guessing, a lot of fanboy hopes and fingers crossed. And then today, the Wall Street Journal let the world know that, they actually are building a wireless network. Thanks to some FCC document snooping, we know it's definitely the case. But the interesting thing about it is it's not a nationwide rollout, nor a region rollout, nor a state or city rollout. It's more of a few acres of land rollout, maybe. It's confined to the Google Mountain View campus. The purpose of this, well, we don't know. It's for some type of experiment, some type of test, and you know what? I love it when Google tests and experiments stuff. So far, they're using the band that is, I said, if you care about band numbers and all that good stuff, it's 25, 24 megahertz to 26, 25 megahertz. So that band, or somewhere around the 2.5 gigahertz band, the only company in the country that uses, 2.6, 2.5 to 2.6 band, gigahertz band. The only company in the U.S. that actually has that spectrum is Clearwire. So, speculation begin. What is Google doing with Clearwire? Are they doing something with Clearwire? Are they going to work with Clearwire to evolve a nationwide wireless service, or nothing at all? Or are they just playing around, and that's what Googlers do? What do you think, Dan? What's this going to turn into?
I think they're probably just playing around with it. Clearwire Spectrum, one of the problems with it is that it is such a high frequency, and so it has relatively low penetration. So my guess is they're probably doing some investigation for basically how to get those high frequency spectrums to work better in doing penetration testing and doing cell phone testing with it. So I don't think that they're really planning to launch their own cell phone network and somehow steal all of Clearwire spectrum. I think that they're just planning to do some testing, and probably specifically around penetration testing, and probably working with basically working with spectrum and providing fiber backhauls to that.
Yeah.
So I think that their interest in it is more just we need some spectrum to play with to do other stuff, but not actually the cell phone parts of it.
Yeah, I guess only time shall tell, or Aaron will when he gets back from using that service in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he is out in California. All right, so Scott, do you want to talk about all these awesome Android app updates, since you're our resident app guy that wakes up in the morning and it feels a little blue inside if he doesn't see his phone telling him there's an app update?
Sure. I don't feel blue.
I thought that over Christmas break, when all the developers were spending time with their family, you were waking up every day feeling sad because your phone wasn't saying there was all
Waking up every
sorts
day
of
without
candy.
my family and feeling sad.
Yeah.
Okay, Temple Run 2, you guys know that game, the original Temple Run? A lot of downloads, a lot of media. Well, they just came out with their second version, and it's kind of cool. Has anybody tried it?
I know people that play it, and they just do it to pass the time when they don't have anything else to do. They're not really into it or anything. I've never really been particularly I've seen it and just been like, eh.
Yeah, well, Temple Run 2, that got released. Kind of a big app. Go test it out. I'm going to test it out after the show as well. Reddit News got updated. For those of you who don't know Reddit News, there are 3 or 4 big Reddit apps, but Reddit News is really, really nice, in my opinion. I know, John, you use it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I bounce between Reddit News and Reddit Sync. I think those are probably the top 2 most popular.
I really need to try Reddit Sync. I hear all these good things about it, and I'm still a big Bacon Reader guy. It's one of those things where that's the first one I found, and I liked it, and I've just used it ever since. But if the grass is greener on the other side, I need to try it.
Yeah, I would say that Reddit Sync, Reddit News, Reddit is fun. All those apps are... So
since there are a whole bunch of Reddit apps, just to get the audience involved here, let us know in the comments what Reddit app you use, if you use Reddit, if you're a Redditor. There's 4 or 5 big ones out there. What's your go-to Reddit app of choice?
So Reddit News got updated. It was a pretty big update. Slide-out navigation, new improved design for posts, load more comments, multiple account support, which is nice. Swipe comments to go back to the post list, and overflow context menus for posts and comments. Also, font size options. That's really nice if you want them really small or really big, depending on what kind of device you're using. Double tap to zoom on a picture, which is also a great addition. And then Hushed is basically an app that allows you to buy disposable anonymous phone numbers for a time frame right from your smartphone. It's good for secret agents like Dan, and police officers like John, and stalkers like Derek.
I am a stalker.
But who would otherwise have their number blocked, or people that do some questionable things on phone calls.
It keeps you from having to buy a burner.
A burner phone. Yeah. So Nate, those things that we were talking about doing, we got this covered now. I don't need to buy a burner anymore.
Good, because I was going to get expensive.
So who uses Tasker? Just out of the guys here in the hangout here now. And also if you're watching the show on YouTube, and let us know, or in Google Plus, let us know if you use Tasker. We have some interesting Tasker news coming up here for you.
Yeah, Tasker. I mean, wait, did you use Tasker first of all?
Yeah, I haven't used Tasker in a long time. Back when I had my Galaxy Nexus, back when times were good and fun, and then I entered the dark ages on the DNA. I don't use Tasker anymore, but I'm gonna have to check out the new updated beta, the Holo UI. I love Holo. Holo's great, and Tasker's awesome for automating pretty much anything based on location, gesture, time of day, context. I mean, it's. How about anybody use Tasker like Scott said?
I use it off and on.
Yeah, I used it a little bit way back when it first came out, so like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And wasn't super impressed with it at the time. So, I mean, maybe I should give it another try now, but on the other hand, my device gets great battery life, so I just don't see the point.
The one reason that
the beta, I mean, I've played around it. It still doesn't really feel like it's been designed. You know, so if you were disappointed with the UI, it still has some. It doesn't. It's the same as it's always been. As it doesn't efficiently guide you through, you know, the context or the actions to actually create a task. It feels like more work than it's worth when there are.
But Tasker can do some cool things too besides just save battery life. So let's say you get the Google TV Tasker plugin. All right, so you come home, you lay your phone down on your NFC tag, let's say, that you have somewhere maybe on your desk. So that turns on your Wi-Fi. It connects to Wi-Fi. It pings your Google TV, turns on your Google TV, and puts it on the news because it's 6 o'clock, and you watch 6 o'clock news as soon as you get home. Things, you know, neat little things like that. You know, so there's all sorts of ways to have fun with it. But as Dan said, yeah, Tasker was really good for saving battery life back in the day, and that's why I really don't use it anymore.
Yeah. I mainly went off and on because of the UI, but yeah. OneWeather was updated to version 2. It brought a new improved UI and more compatible with ICS, and also tablet support, which is awesome, and a lock screen widget for 4.2 and up, and also improved ongoing notifications and a few other things as well. And then
so Pebble launched or started shipping products this week, Scott. Pebble's the Kickstarter smartwatch that raised $10 million and sold out all of their Kickstarter pre-orders, and they started shipping this week their first 500 the first day, the second day, you know, another big batch, and so forth. And their Android app launched, it went live. Now, smartwatches are a neat a neat market, I'm going to say, a neat product that maybe we're going to see a lot of in the next year. I mean, there's already other products, like Meta Watch or Sony, and but Pebble was pretty cheap. It was $100 or $150 now if you want one, and it does basic things. It's not, I don't know, it's not that cool yet. I mean, it'll let you know when you have an incoming email, a call, messages, the weather, the time. You can download different clocks, all that. I mean, it's cool stuff, but is it enough to make you want to wear a watch again? I mean, I haven't worn a watch in 20 years. How about you guys? What do you think of smartwatches? There's a rumor that Google's making a smartwatch, and Apple might be working on one, and now we have things like Pebble hitting. I mean, if all these things are in conjunction with your current smartphone or tablet, would it make you wear one again? Would you want to wear one?
No. I don't wear a watch because I find it uncomfortable.
I do too, and I guess, well, you wouldn't put anything on your body that you're not used to, I guess, so it might be something that you have to get used to if it does serve the purpose that, outweighs the learning curve of getting used to it, you know what I mean? I mean, if it did a lot, then I'd be up for it.
I think one of the things that people stopped wearing watches for is because their phone can tell time.
Exactly.
It's just a consolidation of utility in one place. I mean, I can understand a Bluetooth headset as a peripheral device because that has a single functionality, but as far as just tethering multiple devices to tap into your smartphone, I just don't see that as a market that's going to really expand that much.
Yeah. I'm curious what happens in the near future. We'll find out. I mean, I'll tell you what. I might say I won't wear a watch, but the mock-ups that somebody made for Google Time, they're not real. But basically, it's Google Now interface running on your a watch. It looks pretty neat. Would it make me wear it? Yeah, probably for a week, and then I'd probably not want to wear it anymore. But we'll see what happens in the near future. So. Aaron's still not back yet for the Paranoid Android Q&A session. We have all sorts of stuff lined up for him, so we're gonna go through a couple more boring segments here. Let's talk about some device news. We had some rumors this week about the Galaxy Note 8. For the longest time, we were hearing it was going to be the Galaxy Note 7, and then we saw some leaked images and specs of the Galaxy Note 8, and it really looks like a Galaxy Note 2 with Galaxy S3 physical buttons. I mean, that's what I think. Who knows if it's real or not? Obviously, it's a leaked image. We'll probably find out more at Mobile World Congress. But why are they releasing an 8-inch Note? Right? We have the original Note. We have a Note 2, which is 5.5-inch screen, which our buddy John here has. And then we have the Note 10.1. So now we're going to have a mid-sized Note, which I don't know if mid-sized is even the right word, since those things are so damn big anyways. So
7 makes more sense for that form factor.
Well, how big is the iPad Mini? 7.7, right?
Almost 8 inches.
7.8? 7.9?
7.8.
Okay, so is that what that's targeted after? Is that targeted towards the iPad Mini then?
I think we've talked about this in previous shows, but I don't really think it's targeted at anything necessarily. I think they are just throwing things with Velcro at a semi-Velcro wall, and they're trying to see if anything sticks. And they have the money to do that, and they have the user base to do that. So I think currently they're just saying, hey, why not? And I think that's maybe why they did the Note, the original one.
And
they're
it
like,
took
hey,
off.
why not? And then it really caught on. They were like, hey, yeah, I really like bigger phones. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think that they've made an 8-point-something-inch tablet before, so I don't think that the 8-inch Note is really a problem. It fits a nice sort of slot in their line between the 5-point-whatever-inch Note 2 and the 10-point-whatever-inch Note. So, I think it makes sense. I just worry that they've got so many lines now. They've got the Galaxy line, they've got the Note line. This is getting ridiculous. How many freaking devices they're shoving out.
I made a post a while back that I thought if they would have put out a Note 7, that it would be probably the most popular 7-inch Android tablet if they priced it right.
Yeah.
And I would say if they keep it at least under $300, but I'd aim for $250 or so. But for students, let's say that someone that didn't have the Note 2 or felt like the Note 2 was too big, a 7-inch tablet that you could take into a class or a business meeting and write down your notes and everything on is kind of a big usage case for a lot of people that are using tablets in class or enterprise, or it just kind of strikes a good balance of being pocketable enough to do that.
And,
I agree with that. I think that size versus the multi-window, I think that really works well for portability and usability.
I'd actually like to demo, try one out just to see for multi-window, on a 7-inch tablet. I'm curious how that actually works out. I think, as you guys are saying, for portability and usability, I think it might be the sweet spot for that.
Yeah, the multi-window works really nice on the Note 2 as a phone, so it can only get better.
Yeah,
it'd be probably a pretty useful device, really.
And remember, the Nexus 7 fits in your pocket, so it's not too big. An 8-inch tablet, tiny little bit bigger. It might fit in some people's pockets still, maybe a back pocket.
On the bezel.
It depends on the bezel, and it depends on the type
Apple-like and have the strangely narrows.
So Dan, if you're wearing your skinny jeans, you're not going to be able to put in a Nexus 7 in your pocket,
I can fit a Nexus 7 in every pants pocket that I have. I think.
But I'm saying, but when you're wearing your sexy skinny jeans, you're not going to be able to do that,
You're assuming that I have any such jeans.
Oh, I've seen pictures, Dan. I've seen pictures.
I doubt that.
I haven't seen pictures.
Not a lot of pictures to be available on the internet.
All right, so we have a question here in the comments. Any rumors on Nexus 4 availability? I wouldn't say so much as a rumor, but a remark. Larry Page at the Google earnings call basically said, "Yeah, that sucks." He acknowledged that Google as a company needs to do better with device availability. It was a very political answer, acknowledging, yes, it sucks that people can't buy devices from us they want. It's something that they need to work on. They're going to continue to work on. Political answer left, political answer right, yada, yada, yada. So at least he acknowledged it in the earnings call. But additionally, I think, speaking of the earnings call, I think he also hinted at Motorola coming out with this rumored Motorola X, Google X, whatever you want to call it, phone, talking about how phones shouldn't go splat when you drop them. Phones should be very durable. Battery should be the top priority. Battery should last forever. It should last all day long into the next day. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And those are things that Motorola has been rumored to be working on, such as a ceramic phone, something that's more durable, a flexible display, not a display that bends and folds in your pocket, but something that can give. When you drop it, it's not going to break. Those are rumors. Do they mean anything? Is that what he was talking about? I don't know. But hey, it's nice to speculate. I'm excited for Google I/O to see what happens.
Definitely.
Moving on to additional devices, the LG Optimus G Pro, which think of that as the Nexus 4 Pro, since the Optimus G is the same phone as the Nexus 4, besides the outside shell and a radio. Exact same hardware internally. It looks like the G Pro is going to be coming out in Japan, so it's going to be big in Japan, as the saying goes. That was a bad joke. It's going to be it's going to have a 5-inch screen, 1080p. The Nexus 4 and the Optimus G, the current one, doesn't do that. They rock a 720p, so it's going to have a bigger battery, higher density screen, a bigger battery, bigger processor, a bigger camera, more storage. So it's a Pro edition. It's of course it's going to be a little bit better all around. And it's coming out, as we said, on NT.com in Japan.
They get all the good stuff.
They get the Butterfly J without Verizon bastardizing it. Yeah, all that good stuff. But speaking of the Butterfly J, so its cousin, the M7, leaked all over the place this week. We had screenshots of the phone. We had renders of the phone. We had screenshots of the UI Sense 5 show up all over the web thanks to a generally trusted source on XDA and Twitter. He posted images of what he says was the M7, and then he was posting images of Sense 5 running on the HTC Droid DNA. And what the story behind that is that he had in his possession the Sprint variant of the M7, and he is porting, basically taking all of the files, the internal ROM files, and porting it over to the Droid DNA, which would be running Sense 5 then and Android 4.1.2. He says he's working on it. He hasn't released it yet because he doesn't want to get kicked in the face by HTC, because they're doing some funny stuff right now, which we'll talk about in a minute. So what's interesting about this rumor, EV Leaks, a kind of trusted source on Twitter, guys, he said that the M7 was going to be released for Verizon, for Sprint, and AT&T, and not T-Mo yet. But what's funny about that is the HTC M7 looks almost exactly like the Droid DNA, has almost exactly the same features. So why would Verizon get two phones that are very, very similar over the course of a couple months? I don't believe that rumor. That's just my thoughts. What about you guys?
No, I think you're probably right. It would make a lot more sense for it to go to T-Mobile, AT&T, and
because it needs to replace the HTC One series. It's the successor. Yeah, so I don't see that happening. But Sense 5, I hate Sense. You know, I've said it before on the show. I hate Sense. I hate Sense. I hate Sense. Sense 5 is a little more minimal. Would I love it? No, but I'd like it better than Sense 4. It doesn't look bad. Have you guys seen the screenshots of it, Scott or Nate or John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw. It looks like they changed up to the classic clock widget that they've always had and put in what looks like a fairly nice, actually. It almost looks like a sort of weather widget that you'd get out of a market app.
I think it looks less. There's less animations. Almost. I mean, that's my. Obviously, we haven't seen anything animated, but it looks like there's less. It's less graphically intense. So
yeah, it's much simpler and cleaner.
Yeah, there's not as much wow and pizzazz on an icon. You know, it's dumbed down a little bit, and that's fine with me.
That's a direction that a lot of the industry, I mean, Google included, has gone to, and it's worked for them. Is that they go a little bit less skeuomorphism like Mac OS X and iOS, and it's kind of getting away from Apple's design and going with something that just brings you right into the content and doesn't, the UI just doesn't get in the way of you doing what you want to do. And I support the design direction because we've seen it with Holo. I mean, I personally like it better that way. I've always liked that, even with Linux distributions or whatever, we had the option of a dumbed down XFCE versus KDE or something. I went for the lightweight one personally.
Absolutely. LXD.
So we had another rumor this past week about a new Nexus 10. The new Nexus 10 basically is just going to have a better, newer CPU and GPU. People have said in the past that you can max out the video on the Nexus 10 because it has 4 million pixels.
Okay,
and the GPU can't handle it, and if you try, you can make it lag. So there's a rumor now saying that, hey, Google has a fix for that, and it's going to be a Nexus 10 with a new GPU and a new CPU. So we'll see what happens at Google I/O, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think them releasing something at Google I/O is one thing. The previous one was released months ago. So refreshing it 6 months later even is...
That's pretty standard, right?
Yeah, that's fairly standard, and I think that they'll probably try and move more towards a 1 or 2 sort of releases a year, where they do one at I/O and then one in October or November. But I don't know that they'll refresh everything at both of those times,
Yeah. Be interesting if they did.
Definitely. I mean, you're pushing it with the.
So we have a little bit of industry shake-up here. We'll go back up here and talk about something that's just happened very, very recently. John or Scott or Dan, you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah,
about
HTC is basically cracking down on sense-based ROMs in general. And the information was on Twitter and a couple of other Reddit as well. And JMZ Software, the owner, and he's the owner of HTCRUU.com. He was ordered by lawyers representing HTC to take down and the website's basically a repository of sense-based ROMs, and they instructed him to take that down and hand over the domain. Could be overkill by lawyers stretching in, or is it the beginning of HTC cracking down on ROMs that modify HTC's proprietary sense software? We have yet to see, but they've done this in the past to other websites as well. And I think the biggest concern is websites that leak out pre-release ROMs more so than modifying finished ROMs, because HTC's generally taken a pretty hands-off approach with it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they're going after is people who are distributing HTC software. Not people who are distributing modified versions of HTC software, but people who are distributing HTC software.
Proprietary software.
Their proprietary software. And keep in mind that they just signed a big deal with Apple. So I would not be surprised if part of that agreement requires them to be more strict about going after their proprietary software, which in this case is Apple's proprietary software.
Yeah.
Or at least I'm quite certain that Apple believes it's entirely their proprietary software now.
Yeah, the ROM chef developers, because there's so many websites like XDA, RootsWiki, Android forums that you're never going to really put that to a stop. And the biggest concern is if pre-release software, there was a lot, and I'm not as familiar with how it is now, but in the case of HTC software, even with finished phones, they would, like back when people used to customize the quick settings in them, there's stuff that those developers have done and have not enabled in finished software in current phones that, the community kind of enabled and added on to, and things like that where, there's, I guess, some threat of people seeing stuff that's really not ready to come out yet or whatever by the community. But then since it's really easy to port between versions as well, and that's probably the bigger issue, is because I don't really recall seeing as much of it with TouchWiz or Blur, but it's pretty easy to take, say, a phone that was running since 2.1 and port 3.5 to it or others, because there were really easy guides to sit there and say, this is how you do it, move these files, and I think HTC just wants to put a stop to that side of it.
They aren't going after the developers on XDA and RootsWiki.
Right.
They're going after people that are redistributing their software.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't about people who are modifying their software, people who are cutting it up and playing.
Yeah, this is somebody that was hosting an RUU from HTC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it had HTC in the name of the website, right? Like, even if they weren't going after what he's distributing, then going after the owner of htcruu.com is not surprising. They're going to be able to seize that domain pretty obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll find out more information over the next coming days or weeks that HTC offers files to redo your phone from think of it as like reflashing your phone from a bricked phone, an RUU file, and HTC wants to be the only one hosting those. We're not, as a consumer, we're not really supposed to have them. It's their proprietary software. So do I agree with it? Yeah, whatever, I don't care. That sucks that it happened, and we'll find out over the next coming weeks. But remember, HTC also doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds them as well, because they're also very developer friendly. And since they release their kernels sometimes timely, but with HTC Dev you can unlock pretty much.
Rarely.
Hey, the DNA kernel, real quick.
The DNA was shockingly fast.
But with HTC Dev though, the HTCDev.com, you can unlock every single phone they've ever made except for like two. The one
which happened
to
be
the one S or one X on AT&T, and
Yes.
the DNA legally, or
Yes, everything that's not on AT&T or Verizon.
yeah. But they're I don't know. I'm curious as to what happens in the next few days or weeks. So Aaron went and found new internet. Just an update on him, and we're actually trying to get him back in here. He is unable to join. He found fast internet. He said he's on 10 megabit up and 10 megabit down. The internet's flowing. It's the places that dreams are made of, he said. But he's having problems joining, and I don't know what to do. I've invited him back. He can't join from where he's at. So, well, we can kill the Hangout and restart it to try to get him back in here, or we just continue. What do you guys want to do?
We can splice it together.
And then splice it together for...
Yeah, that's doable.
All right, so if you're watching on YouTube, we love you. If you're watching on Google+, we love you. We're going to quit the Hangout, quit this show, the broadcast on YouTube, to try to get the main man in here, the whole reason we're doing this tonight, and see if we can get him back in here. And either way, we're gonna come back for a few minutes to wrap up the show. So
that's good.
Hopefully all of you come back. Sorry about that, but technical difficulties. Hey, at least we didn't blue screen on stage like Microsoft does. All right, we'll be back in a minute.
IE crashes.
Okay, and we're back. We have technical difficulties resolved. We have our main man here, Aaron from Paranoid Android. We're ready to start all things Paranoid Android. We're going to give you guys a second here to rejoin the show, restart watching us here, and then we're going to get into the Q&A session. One last thing of news here before we get into Paranoid Android. Wanted to mention that if you haven't registered your Samsung Galaxy S3 yet, you can still get some free tech tiles for registering your phone and a free flip cover. You just got to go to the Samsung's website and enter your IMEI number and watch your inbox, and you'll get 6 free programmable tech tiles and a flip cover. So you might as well do that if you have a Sammy device. It's pretty nice free stuff. Okay.
Yeah, pretty painless too.
Before we start, Derek, we have a question from the audience about thoughts on the upcoming Ubuntu and Firefox phones.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we can hit on that real quick. So I got to see the Ubuntu phone at CES. Very intuitive UI, different than anything that we have available right now. It's all gesture-based. Besides being cool, I don't know where that will go because ecosystem makes the product. So it might take it 2 years before it's even mass used. Well, we're not even going to see an official device for another year. So who knows? I don't know. It's cool, but is the average person going to use it? Probably not. That's my opinion.
Well, look at Ubuntu's desktop adoption. Even though it's by far the top Linux distribution, it's just nothing compared to Windows and Mac OS X.
So do you think it'll be as big as like the dev community, the Rootin' and Rommers out there?
No.
Or it won't be that big, it'll be just a smaller percentage of that?
I say some diehard Ubuntu fans, will run it. I don't know if they'll use it as a daily driver once they find out there's no ecosystem. That's just my opinion. Aaron, you're a big Linux guy. What do you think about Ubuntu phone?
It's not going to take off. It just doesn't have the driving force behind it. Their hardware is going to be behind, and Android is too popular.
Yeah. No, and I think the same is true of the Mozilla phone. I mean, it's seriously spec'd the same as the Nexus 1. The Nexus 1.
Yeah, it's sad.
It has a single-core 1 gigahertz processor and a half a megabyte of RAM.
Yeah, but that's
Nexus 4 has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM.
The other thing, I think the only way these platforms have a legit chance at getting development is, HTML5. HTML5 is pretty much the only way that any of them have a snowball's chance in hell of seeing applications.
Yeah, but look at Facebook, who just ran away from HTML5 because it didn't work very well for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, the manufacturers have to agree on standards to get HTML5 to interact with hardware better.
Yeah,
until that day comes,
HTML5 is not done yet.
Yeah, exactly. Until that day comes, they don't have a chance, honestly. That'll be when it really doesn't matter anymore. As much, anyway.
All right, so let's talk about Paranoid Android. The reason that everybody was here earlier, and hopefully you all came back after our technical difficulties. Aaron went to the promised land. He got his fast internet. His audio's working. He's ready to answer some questions. So, Aaron, thank you for doing whatever you had to do to make it back to join us on the show. I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's get started with Paranoid Android. So my earliest memory of Paranoid Android was back on the Galaxy Nexus shortly after ROM started appearing for it. I remember seeing this thread called Paranoid Android, and that somebody called Moles Are Coming, or was talking about not tablet mode, but a hybrid mode for the Galaxy Nexus. And this was after somebody had already released a tablet mode for the Galaxy Nexus, and everyone's like, oh, that's cool, but sometimes it's hard to read. And then we see this new ROM coming out that talked about a hybrid mode where it was not phone UI, not tablet UI, but it was it was half and half, and people were talking about, oh, if you run it with large fonts, it's okay, and then then the next week we heard this thing about per app DPI and build.prop edits, and then boom, it just took off, and then hybrid mode settings, per in-app settings, and you guys just have changed so much since then. So how many guys are on the team right now?
Currently, it's 4.
4 of you. Okay. And how long have you been on the team?
About 5 months.
Okay, and you maintain the grouper, the Nexus 7, is
and
that correct?
the Tilapia, the Nexus 7 3G.
And the 3G. Okay, and the Tilapia. Okay, nice. Okay, very good. And how many devices do you guys, Paranoid Android, officially support?
Officially only Nexus devices, but we have been ported to the Galaxy S3 and the Note 1 and 2.
Okay, and that's a little different from what I remember. In the past, you would find Paranoid Android on, basically if CM was on it, there's a good chance somebody would be trying to port an unofficial, Paranoid Android to that. And you guys changed it at some point. You were basing the ROM off of CyanogenMod, and then a while ago you guys decided to base it off of AOSP. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why those changes took place?
The reason before that is because as we added more of our own features, it became harder and harder to remerge the CM changes on top of it. So the git merges were just a real pain. So because we were going in our own direction, we decided to go straight off of AOSP.
I guess that makes sense. Because you were, whatever they're changing week to week, and you're changing week to week. You're having to, fight, for lack of better words, to get things to work, because you don't know what's coming in the pipeline, and depending on what you're cherry picking from CM, and if they release something that changes something or breaks something, then you got to fight with it. And I mean, was it creating issues for you guys?
Yeah, that was the biggest issue. We'd have random things that would break. We'd have random CM issues, and then just the git merges were a real pain.
So it's a lot easier right now going straight off of AOSP.
Yeah, and this time around, we actually beat them to the punch. Our Paranoid Android, we had betas out before CM had CM 10.1 out this time.
Oh.
So this time we were actually ahead of them.
Well, that's a bragging right, because CM's a driving force in the Android ecosystem. That's nice to be able to tout that as, hey, we beat the big guys. That's nice.
Yeah, so we had to wait on them. We had to push us back another 2 months or so. We had to wait for CM 10.1 to become stable before we can build on top of it.
So yeah, that makes sense then. So that's why you're moving to your own, your own fork of AOSP. That way you don't have to wait for somebody else. Okay. So what do you? AOKP, we'll talk about them for a second. They have so many customizations. I mean, you can customize just almost too much, in my opinion. Unless you're Scott Anderson, he loves AOKP. CM, they're less customized, but they're more stable than AOKP, in my opinion. And so where in there would Paranoid Android fit? You see, even less customization or more customization, more stable?
In terms of stability, we're very stable since we're straight AOSP. We don't have any of these other device modifications that could produce bugs and that kind of thing. In terms of customizability, we're probably right around CM, but we have a different feature set. So we're more about hybrid, innovation, unique features, but we don't have things like battery percentage, different lock screen options, weather in the status bar, that kind of thing.
But some of your features are pretty awesome, especially the new one that everyone's ranting and raving about. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the features that Paranoid Android has, and as well as this new pie that we keep hearing all about?
Our biggest feature would be the hybrid mode, which allows you to do per app DPI, per app layout, which means you can have a tablet layout with a smaller, larger font, and any app you choose. Like a good example would have been the old YouTube app. The tablet UI had a 3D carousel, so it was a really nice effect and everything, so we enabled that. And then on top of that, we added per app color, so you could change your navigation buttons to match themes and things like that. A good example of that was Google Now. The whole background was white, so it has seamless, cleaner appearance. And then once we finished that, we started the Pi UI. The Pi UI is a system UI replacement, so it's made to completely get rid of tablet UI or phone UI or phablet, if that's what you want to call it. And another way of navigation. It's based on the AOSP browser code, which was, I believe, introduced in ICS. But from then, it's nowhere close to it. That was maybe 1,200 lines, ours is 2,500 lines, and we rewritten most of the original code.
Well, yeah, I remember that whenever the ICS browser came out, it had the labs feature that allowed you to have the pop out radial Pi type controls, and a lot of people like that. That was neat. So you guys took that as a base, and then you completely rewrote it.
That was the starting point, but now we're 110 commits 2,500 lines later.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, no one can say that you just took that and ported it. You totally rewrote it and did it all.
Correct.
It sounds like it's your own.
Yes.
Now, we hear a lot of people talking about the LMT launcher ever since Pi. Ever since Paranoid Android started coming out with the Pi teasers and then the Pi betas. People start saying, "Oh, well, this is just like LMT launcher. You don't need Pi." Now, and then people start getting in a war about which is better, and did you take code from this, and yada yada yada. And do you want to enlighten us that aren't aware what that's all about?
Well, LMT is closed source for one, so there was no code stealage. It is also based on the AOSP browser code. But like I said, we've completely rewritten it, and I don't know if you noticed, but recently in the newer betas, they've been using features from us. They now have the status bar thing with the clock and notifications, and we also shared some of our code with them. The code for our touch targets, where it's at on an axis, we've shared that with the LMT developer, and he's also implemented that on his application.
So you guys are now working together then?
I wouldn't call it working together, but we're open for collaboration.
Very, very political. I like that. So yeah, so some of the features of Pi, I actually put it on my Nexus 7 here. I put it on there last Saturday night. I was bored and I said, I keep seeing this Pi thing. I gotta find out all about it. So I went and I put it on there, and at first I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. It's cool. It's definitely something different. And then I said, you know what? There's a few features that I'm missing. I want my toggles. I want my notifications. And then lo and behold, you guys read my mind. Within a couple days, you guys added that. You added notifications. You added an easy way to get to your settings, to get to all your toggles. You guys totally rewrote that. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit more work to be done. The toggles need to be added to the chevron, the second chevron for the Pi. We have our own custom views for notification and quick toggles. Those need to be expanded a little bit, but we're getting close.
Yeah, so if you can see here, those of you watching it, well, with the reflection's going to be bad, but when I let go on that, they're going to pop out from the side there. So and you can go in and you can customize those if I want sound there, GPS there, Bluetooth, and so forth. So just like other ROMs that allow you to customize that too, but they wrote their own code for that. And I like how also reading our minds, I guess we also had talked about the ability to, it'd be nice if I wanted to flick the Pi menu out from the right side or the left side or the top or the bottom, no matter where I was at, I could flick it out. And when we talked last, that feature wasn't available, and now, lo and behold, you can now do that, and that's pretty cool. I like that. And now, when we talked last, you had said that there might be some problems implementing that, but you guys were able to get past that?
Yeah, we got around it, but like I said, it is a touch target, so if you enable it, it's possible it can cause incompatibility issues with certain apps that have swipe gestures in them.
Yeah, what was I doing? I was swiping on my my desktop my home screen, and I was trying to go to a different screen, and the Pi menu popped out. And I was like, oh! Yeah, but I understand what you're saying.
That's why we have the option to have multiple sides. You can have top and bottom. You can do whatever you feel is the most for your situation.
Yeah, and I changed it because I don't depending on how I hold my device, I change it to my fit. I actually use it on the bottom and use it on the top. I'm sorry, on the bottom and on the right now, and it works really well for me. I like it. Now, I'm still, besides being cool, I'm still trying to see what other uses I can find for that extra, inch of space. But I love it. It looks awesome. The fact that I can just flick out and I like it. I like to be able to see my battery percentage there, the date and the time. My notifications are right there. I can swipe up to them. I like it. You guys are doing great things, and it's getting a lot better.
For me, I haven't used the regular nav bars in 3 or 4 days. I have mine on the right side. I can use it completely one-handed, and I love it.
Now, I bet that's really where the breaking point is. You'd have to use it for a few days, because right now I know that if I'm in an app and I want to get back to the home screen, it seems it's almost like a little bit of a hassle to swipe up or swipe to the side to then hit home. Whereas before I could just tap a button, a soft key, and it would take me to the home. But as you get better with it, I'm finding it's easier. I mean, well, not easier, but it's just as easy. You get used to it. Now, John, you said you had a question for Aaron here?
Yeah, just with the last, well, especially lately with the ROM itself and the applications like the Pi menu and Paranoid Preferences. I know you're four-man team as far as all that goes. Is software development kind of, I mean, obviously this is a hobby for all of you, but is it something that you do kind of as a career and just decide to do this in your spare time, or is it like a hobbyist thing that got them kind of developing on Android ROMs in general? Or because I mean it's quality code, there, I know it's a lot of lines of code you've had to put out, so.
3 of us are computer science, computer engineering majors. 1 of us electrical engineering major. So we're all in the industry. 2 of us are students. So this is kind of our hobby. For me, it's very educational. I learn more doing this than I do during school. So.
Are you looking to then pursue a career with Android development then after this, since you've learned so much?
Ideally, but there's not many hiring opportunities for that. Okay,
well, there you go. We'll have Android Authority Job Services. We'll let you know when we find a staffing agency that is interested in you. But yeah, that's it. You got to use what resources you have available, and we'll let people know that these guys know what they're doing, and they're talented young programmers. They're doing innovative, interesting things. The PA preferences, the Paranoid Android Preferences app is awesome. The fact that you can customize, completely almost theme, any app. Very, very cool.
And like I said, that's all open source. Anyone's free to port that to whatever ROM they choose. The only thing is that we ask is that you don't include it with any build prop hacks or DPI changers or tablet modes or anything, because it does conflict and it looks bad in our image. Other than that, the code is completely open source and free to use.
And you guys have a GitHub available or something of this Git somewhere?
Yes. The PA Prefs application is closed source, but we're working with Team Bake on the open source version. So.
Now, actually, that you brought that up, there is a Play Store paid version available. How much is the PA Prefs premium app?
About $2.94 last time I checked.
Okay. Do you guys plan to add some type of bonus features to that, or maybe they're already there for people that are supporting the devs and everything like that, right?
Right now, it's only a properties viewer, so you can see all the apps that you've changed and edit their properties. So instead of having to go through the entire list, it's just a quicker, easy way to do it. We plan on adding beta features and additional features to that in time.
Oh, good. And you know what? This is a nice way to support the devs. I mean, you could always, give them a few bucks on a PayPal link, but why not, buy their app if you're a fan of the ROM, and you get a few extra features out of it as well. There might not be groundbreaking features, but they're cool. Tiny little additions here and there.
Yeah, the plan is not having a core feature tied to the Pro version. We considered having beta of Pi tied to it, but we decided that was against the community, and we decided to just have it completely open.
Now, when I know it's against the law almost to say, so when is this going to be out? You know, like no ETAs is the patented cyanogen mod rule, and I'm assuming you guys follow that as well. When a stable version of Paranoid Android 3.0 is going to be available?
Well, the ROM itself is stable. Hybrid Engine is 100% stable. The rest of the ROM is stable. So for the ROM itself, I say we're at an RC status, but Pi is more of a beta status. So once Pi reaches RC status, we can look further to 3.0.
Okay.
But everything else is done, fully tested, vetted, and everything.
Okay.
So
Makes
Pi
sense.
is the last link.
Well, makes sense. It's big changes. Now, do you guys foresee yourself doing? A lot of popular ROMs do. Big ROMs, have big followings. They do nightly builds. They have a build bot that runs every day and commits. Pulls down. Garrett commits and builds them and says, "Hey, here's the latest thing." Do you guys think you're going to get into doing something like that in the future?
We do use the XDA build bot, which has been a real big help because we know we're limited in our computing power. But in terms of nightlies, since it's only 4 of us, the ROM's not changing quick enough for it to really need nightlies. So on average, there's maybe 4 or 5 commits a day, and they're not anything major. If there's a major bug or issue, we'll try to put out a new build as soon as possible. But for most things, it can wait.
Okay.
And our Git is actually down right now, so we're kind of using our Git as a in-place code system. But sometimes you wouldn't really want to build a nightly like that.
Now, Dan, as a former re-emerging kernel developer, Dan, do you have any questions for Aaron? You have any insight on what these guys are doing?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this last week, but I think they're still interesting questions. I'd asked you a little bit about how deep the changes are into the code. I know we talked about it being mostly framework-related changes, but can you speak a little bit more to sort of what are the challenges from a technical standpoint of doing this level of a change?
Compatibility. We're trying to stay on the edge with Google, not breaking any apps, and so far we've been successful. So that's probably the biggest thing, and we use a whole bunch of undocumented or underdocumented APIs. So that's been a big issue. But we have a really good team. We know what we're doing. This is our second try at Hybrid. We've already done our third try, Hybrid 2, which will be part of PA 3.0. That was completely rewritten from scratch in all native code. So it's a 30% faster system. It's very clean. That one, we reduced our code size, our heap size. It's a very more optimized experience. And once we immerse that in going forward, the changes aren't that bad. At first, it used to be really messy and spread out, but we've condensed it and gotten the minimum needed to function on hybrid properly.
Good. I mean,
but for you to port this to, say, a ROM like CM or AOKP, it'd be a challenge due to the Git merges and things like that. But the code's out there if you want to go for it. I've done it personally. I've ported it to different ROMs and things like that. It's not impossible.
One thing I really noticed with CM especially, I know AOSP has to let you move a ton faster just because it took, I mean, especially with CM9 and Ice Cream Sandwich came out, by the time they really got stable work, even for the Nexus devices, that's when Google dumped Jelly Bean out on everyone. They were adding so many more features on a daily basis almost, that it kind of slowed them down to a crawl almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of that, we're missing key features like the weather things and the battery percent. We've been focusing on our innovative features. Once 3.0 is out and stable, we can start looking at implementing CM features and different ROM community features.
Yeah. And some can be overkill, feature-wise. I mean, so it's not such a bad thing to be close to stock. A lot of people really prefer it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially as stock has been getting better.
So yeah, ever since 4.0 came out, a lot of the stuff has just really become unnecessary.
The one thing that we do miss the most is battery percent. If that's on the to-do list, it's just there's so many other things to do. In terms of community features, our toggles were more or less feature complete on those. We implemented the CM version of the navbar editor, so we have that in, and We have our per app colors, so we have all the nav bar colors, things like that. We have our own version of lock screen targets. We're not using the CM or AKB version. We have our own, which is more. We wanted to preserve the Google always unlock, so you can unlock anywhere in the circle. So we have more of a launcher row on the lock screen. So we have our own version of that. We were the ones who pioneered expanded desktop, so we have that in our ROM. We also have our own implementation of kill all in recents, where we replace the recents button with a new button that kills all your apps except the last one, and you double press to kill the last app. So again, that was one of our unique features that we had that we re-entered to our version 3.
I actually have a question about expanded desktop in Pi. No, now, correct me if I'm wrong here. To enable Pi, I need to have expanded desktop enabled, correct?
On the current versions, yes. In the next version, we do have the ability, if you have the Pi on the left or right side, to keep the status bar.
Okay, because right now I was curious as to why you have to go to 2 separate places to enable it. But if those changes are coming, then that makes perfect sense. Then
the reason we have it like that now is we didn't want any UI clashes where if you brought down the notification or quick settings tray, Pi would actually show up over the button, so you couldn't push it up.
Okay.
So if you have it on the bottom, things like that. So we're trying to avoid that kind of thing.
Okay, well that's a good explanation. Now I know, because I was a little confused at first, but now that I know that things are in the pipeline and the build I have now, super alpha beta double secret probation version. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I flashed a new version right before the show here, and interesting. I'll have to check that out. So you're saying that on this version that I have now, I can have Pi enabled and have the bottom and turn off expanded desktop.
Yeah, the planned implementation is you go to stock UI or phone UI, and you set your navbar size to 0, and then enable Pi, and the Pi would be a bare Pi with no status information, but you also have your status bar up top.
Interesting. Okay, I'll check that out.
So, and in the next build, we also fixed all the keyboard issues where the keyboard wouldn't disappear, and we've fixed most of the lock screen issues where you have your status bar on the lock screen and you can get your notifications and that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Well, so you guys are constantly making changes, fixes, adding to it. So yeah, I'm curious.
And hopefully, the next version will have a quick pop-up for notifications. Where when you're enabled Pi and expanded desktop, a brief pop-up will show you your current notification and it'll be clickable, so you have quick access to that without having to pull up Pi to your new notification.
That and that's actually great. That solves a lot of the issues with not being able to easy get to your notifications. That solves that right there.
Yeah, it's a known issue. We're working on it.
Yeah, I like it. That's good. Yeah, okay.
And we're also working on a vertical text mode for Pi, and some people don't like the circle text, so it's on the to-do list.
Very good. Okay. All right. If we don't have any other questions for Aaron here, Aaron told us what they have planned in the pipeline coming down in the future, and he answered a whole bunch of questions about Paranoid Android, as well as their innovative features such as Pi and per app settings. If nobody has any other questions for him, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Dan, Nate, Scott, John?
What's your website for Paranoid Android? Where can people go to find more information about it, find ROMs, find downloads?
The official page is actually our Google Plus page.
Okay.
We do have a website, but we tend to use Google Plus more. So it's just easier to have comments and that kind of thing.
And I assume that's just Paranoid Android on Google Plus, so plus Paranoid Android?
Correct.
And then to find your ROM, you have to download it from like XDA or RootsWiki.
XDA and goo.im.
Yeah, actually, I get we're actually good friends with the guys that more so Dan than me, I guess. But we know them. We've actually had the goo.im guys on the show in the past.
So I assume it's also in Goo Manager for people that want to download it through that?
Correct.
It is, yeah.
Now, Scott, you've been running it on your Nexus 4 for the past hour and a half, correct?
Yes.
How has that hour and a half been?
Well, I'm so used to a different ROM. It's different, and definitely the settings you can dive a lot more. These are just my initial impressions. I haven't dug real deep, but I mean, it seems like that there's a lot more to it and a lot more customizability with regards to setting it up. I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper into it.
Tomorrow on your bus ride to work, go in there to those per app settings and just start tapping on everything, everything, and break it. Yeah.
The only thing that keeps him back is the lack of that live pink unicorn wallpaper that he keeps on his phone all the time.
For every device, we also have a pre-built set of per app settings. So certain apps on certain size devices work better. So there's also a pretty good default set in there. So for like certain devices, Chrome, for example, will use the tablet UI with the tabs on top versus the full screen UI.
Okay.
And Gmail is probably the best example. On phones, Gmail works so much better with the dual pane UI, so that should be a default setup.
Yeah, I noticed that I don't see all the cool stuff on the Nexus 7 because I already have tablet UI for all my apps. It's really cool for phones, for the Nexus 4 and Galaxy Nexus.
It works really well on the Note 2 just because of the screen real estate, and like Aaron said, is Gmail is the most significant application. It doesn't even make sense that Gmail navigates the way it does on phones after using it like that.
Okay. All right, well, Aaron, thank you for joining us again. Maybe we'll have you back on the show some other time when you guys release some more cool stuff for your ROM and or have some big news you want to announce. You're always welcome to come back anytime you want and talk about anything Android related. Hopefully next time we don't have as much technical difficulties getting you here, but it was great to have you.
Yes. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, anything else you want to say? Any shout-outs or anything to your team?
Just the team. We've been a lot of work been going in. Everyone should appreciate the effort. Buy our Pro app. It really does help a lot. There's only 4 of us, so it's a huge time commitment and that kind of stuff.
Support your developers, definitely. All right, Scott. So where can everybody find us when they're not watching us live or listening to us live?
Well, every day after the show, AndroidAuthority.com. Scroll on to the bottom right. There's a little on-air section. We post, or Derek posts, a little summary of every episode. Also, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and yeah.
All right, and thanks again, guys, and have a good night.